Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring Nightfell, the core book. This is a setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's a very dark and mysterious setting. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about two of the ethnicities, the Anireth, the first men, and the Ejre, the primevals. Let's start with the Anireth. But it's important to note that many ethnicities in the world of Yurmen have died out because of the last sun, some forgotten forever, and others whose memory is more tangible, for example, the Veronzin. Now, without further ado, we start with the Anireth, the first men. They are forged by darkness. Once human, corrupted by the secondary world and its icy power after the fall of Sivanis, all that remains are a small number of them, often unseen by other populations. About 3 centuries after the truths were revealed, Thurinthian survived only in memory, mainly because of the fragmentation that mankind suffered throughout their ancient history, characterized by political conflicts, geographical expansions, and religious schisms. The two main causes behind the city's abandonment were the disastrous earthquake of the year 275 after Lagoran and the civil wars that followed. The new capital, Sivanis, was built above the ruins of the previous one. This city, far from the honor and prestige of the previous one, was the capital of what remained of the old province of men, who had now proclaimed themselves Anireth, or elders, in the first language. Their society had remained faithful to the previous legislature, with the sages in command and the social order divided into castes, but the greatness of their ancestors was now lost. The continuous wars and secessions of the first men had thinned out their aristocracy, as only the nobles had the right to form armies and could lay claim to new lands. The need to form new social castes had already upset Thurinthian society, and this instability persisted in the disastrous new capital. The Anireth's mistake was to abandon the ancient tradition after 3 centuries in order to seek new power in the underground city where Lagoran's secrets were hidden. The warnings from neighboring cities were useless, as the humans craved the splendors of old and were convinced that the ruins of Thurinthian held the key to the power of the First Age. Soon, the remaining morals and intellectual values were diminished. It was in that forgotten place where the Anireth sought bygone glory and hid from their depressing day-to-day life. That evil infiltrated the world from an open door left ajar centuries earlier. Dark clouds in the sky obfuscated the celestial vault, while the dead came back to life, and grieving ghosts came to haunt the eternal night. Thus, the men of Sivanis fulfilled the fourth truth, and every inhabitant of Yurmen experienced death and terror. That day, and for every day to come, the hours were punctuated by the only glow that still lit up the sky, the moon, renamed Mirithlen in honor of the one who alone escaped the horror of the other world. The lust of the first men, the lineage of the elders, or Anireth, was such as to lead the world into darkness. This sin has cost the descendants of this noble lineage dearly, relegating them to a life of outcasts and exiles. The remaining Anireths were forever blamed as the cause of the last sun, and often live alone or are clustered in the underground enclave of Ervenrun, the only place they can call home after the fall of Sivanis. In that dark and unhealthy slum, hidden from other ethnic groups, many of them accept their destiny and the responsibility for the sin of their ancestors, striving to prove their worth. Others yearn for vengeance, and are still lured to the dark power that hides beneath Thurinthian in their distant homeland. The Anireth characters will come to terms with the prejudices of other peoples and the burden imposed on them by the choices of the past. Let's talk about some of the racial traits. The Anireth all possess the same racial traits derived from their dark heritage, although they are easily identifiable from the diaphanous complexion, ice-colored eyes, and silver-colored hair. The corruption of the Dark Mirror can manifest itself with unique characteristics. The player can choose, if they want, to assign a unique physical trait that will make the character more or less monstrous, such as long claws, small horns, a tail, scales, or spines, a variable number of phalanges, or even strange skin spots in the shape of mysterious symbols. Let's talk about these traits. When it comes to ability score increase, your intelligence is normally pretty high, and you can choose another ability to increase as well. When it comes to the age, Anireth can live up to 150 years. When it comes to alignment, they tend to struggle against their dark side, although many of them remain neutral or act to help the community. Some, however, allow themselves to be easily charmed by darkness. When it comes to size, they are of medium size. Their speed is normal. They do have dark vision, so they can see up to a certain distance in the dark. They have spectral translation. As an action, you can phase halfway through to the ethereal plane and move your speed. During this movement, opportunity attacks against you have disadvantage. You ignore difficult terrain and can traverse the space occupied by other creatures or solid objects. There's also Dark Legacy. You possess a special predisposition to darkness that has contaminated your lineage. You add your intelligence modifier to soul points earned at each level. We will talk about soul points in a future part of this review. Then we have Spectral Presence. You have proficiency in Intimidation. You also have sensitivity to grim weapons. Your connection to Enferun makes you susceptible to blows from grim weapons, as if you were a fiend. This, however, does not prevent you from wielding them in combat. I will talk about grim weapons in a future part of this review. When it comes to languages, you can read, write, and speak in common, of course, but you can also understand the whisper of echoes. You can also speak it. When it comes to names, the first men often bear solemn names. Their ancient heritage is perfectly expressed by the sound of their names, sometimes accompanied by expressions or suffixes typical of the first language. So you have male names such as Andrein, Marnel, Yangjen. You have female names such as Arindil, Ernilen, Varsilem. You have Anireth family names such as Orland, Farindi, Giriot. Now let's talk about the Ejre, the primevals. This population has a remarkably close bond with nature and with the energies that permeate the earthly world. This feature makes them foremost sentries against the sinister advance of darkness. They can clearly perceive the grip of Enferun encroaching on reality, forcing them to become increasingly fierce and dedicated to their oath as sworn protectors of Rahidra, the last symbol of enduring primeval life. The primevals were once fractured into many tiny clans, scattered across the grassland of the ancients. These clans always formed around a druid that led the family or even the entire community. These leaders have now assembled the tribes, creating a unified clan residing in Ol Civis, the city that formed at the base of the Elder Tree. All of the druids answer to Rahidra, the one who is as old as the dawn of her people. She was the first leader wise enough to fully understand the secrets of the primitive source of power, making her intrinsically linked to the primordial entities. Such access to the energies of life and reality has given her a centuries-long lifespan, and an appearance closer to that of the gargantuan millennial trees than any mortal. Her life force, however, along with her magical and divine powers, is gradually yielding to the necrotic aura of the Dark Mirror and the beings who dwell there, whose influence on the earthly world increases more and more every day. Although Rahidra's strength has declined, the respect her entire people have for her does not fade, as she has never failed to guide them in times of need. Her wisdom and mastery of esoteric arts make her an expert in lunar divination, magical arts, different languages, and traditions. The primevals are renowned among other ethnicities for their primitive customs, their vocation for mysticism, and their strong bond with creation. They are called Ejre, derived from the primordial rune Ejrezdin, which literally means people of the moon. by virtue of the predisposition towards the various forms of lunar divination and the strength they draw directly from the energies that the primes and Mirthland have imprinted on Yurmen. In the Second Age, many welcomed the ancient tradition, although maintaining a detachment from the entities of the Sempiternal. The Ejre, therefore, rejected the will to ascend to Sidir after death, and were the first to consider joining the primitive energies that underlie the earthly world. Since ancient times, the Ejre have also made myths out of earthly creatures of a minor order, such as Nani Orku, son of the Primes. Nani Orku was also the title bestowed on the most talented warriors, as strong as the giants' children. In the grassland of the ancients, you can admire many monoliths that the primevals had once used as places of worship and epicenters of their mystical rituals, tradition assimilated by the Veronsin, with whom they had many cultural exchanges. Let's talk about the racial traits of the Ejre. The primeval culture blends old customs and wild lifestyles. They often become warriors as ferocious as the large predators or powerful Masiari. Their appearance is similar to that of the Grey People, appearing as common humans, usually in clothes of skins, feathers, with beaded braids in their hair. When it comes to ability scores, they are usually wise, and they excel in 2 other ability scores chosen by the player. When it comes to age, the duration of their lives is the same as other humans, although before the last sun, they lived more than a century thanks to the blessings bestowed by the energy of the primes. Concerning alignment, primevals are mostly good, for almost the entire population is part of the apostates of Rahidra, preserving customs and traditions and a strong bond with the faint light of the primes, for which they are willing to fight strenuously. Some of them tend towards neutrality, favoring what seems most right to them regardless of their creed. They are of medium size, they have normal speed, however, when wearing light or no armor, their speed increases. They have the bond with life. Thanks to the particular connection to the primes, they have advantage on saving throws against poison, petrification, and instant death effects. They have the source of innate power. They know a cantrip chosen from the druid's spell list. They have tribal culture, proficient in 2 skills of your choice, perhaps nature and survival. You have savage weapons training. You are proficient with axes, javelins, and such. In your hands, these weapons deal additional damage. Concerning languages, the Ejre can speak, read, and write in common, but they also know how to read and write primordial runic. Concerning the names of the Ejre, the primevals have never given importance to onomastics and often recycle names belonging to older cultures, such as satyrs and Grey People. Their connection with nature, although dying, very often leads them to adopt nicknames of naturalistic origin. These nicknames are conferred by shamans and druids once maturity has been reached, and are a form of good omen for those Ejre who begin their journey through life, with all the responsibilities that come with it. So you have nicknames such as Prowler Legacy, Green Hand, or Dew of the People. You have male names such as Iron, Dvaik, Gothur. You have female names such as Xei, Eleni, Luzan. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about 2 more ethnicities. We are going to go through all of the ethnicities in this setting. When it comes to the first men, the Anireth, they are quite decadent. I like both of these ethnicities. I like how they stand out from each other. And in the case of the Anireth, they are a fallen nobility sort of ethnicity. They have been tainted by darkness. If you want to play as a monstrous character that still holds some sort of air or glimpse of what you once were, a proud and perhaps glorious nobleman or woman, this is the ethnicity for you. I also like their phantasmagoric abilities of being able to phase into the ethereal plane, while you still have that weakness, that sensitivity to grim weapons. You are considered to be a fiend in some ways. Now, when it comes to the Ejre, they kinda look like the good guys of the setting, but at the same time, You don't know if they are going to be tricked in some way. Perhaps a darker power impersonates a force of nature and leads them astray. After all, the Anireth were once good and noble people, but they were led into darkness. So who is to say that the Ejre do not run this risk? And because they are quite tribalistic, not exactly civilized, maybe they are not as advanced in terms of technology when compared to other populations. However, it's great that they have this connection to the powers of the planet. Even though the planet is being smothered by darkness, they still have that bond and have some advantages when it comes to spellcasting, saving throws, and are quite powerful in close quarters combat. So both ethnicities work great. They fit the setting perfectly. So thank you for watching this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about the Garnar and the Grey Folk. I also wanted to tell you that one of my viewers, RP Grandpa, has recently informed me that now Nightfell is on Reddit, so you might want to check that out. The link will be in the description below. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending right through RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.